All bad things must come to an end. The Bears break their 6-game losing streak with a win over the Houston Texans, 36-7. You're listening to Bear Football here on the Barroom Network. John Buffone alongside Aldo Gandia. Aldo, the Bears come out and they rip off 30 points at halftime, and then they kind of just sit on that lead in the second half, which is fine. I kind of fell asleep during the second half, but that's fine because they were winning, and so they did what they had to do to beat a team that, for all intents and purposes, just they flew up to Chicago to get beat. I don't think they had any interest in this game. I don't think most of the Texans players wanted to even be in Chicago, but that being said, the Bears had to show up and play their game, and they executed well. And we saw a good game out of Mitchell Trubisky. We saw a good game out of David Montgomery, and we saw a couple of good flashes on defense as well, a couple of takeaways and a safety. So overall, does this move the needle for you at all for anything?
Well, I think the headline of the story here is that Mitch Trubisky had a better game than Deshaun Watson. Now, what that means, you can interpret it however you want. You certainly you should not interpret it as Mitch Trubisky is a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson. That is obviously not anywhere near true. But what you can perhaps say is that Mitch can play winning football when he has a team around him that is not making mistakes, that is performing effectively, that is giving him time to throw. But more importantly to me is that he has a scheme that supports his strengths. And that, I think, is huge. And I want to applaud and pat on the back Mitch Trubisky. This, of course, was a tough week for him. He had all the questions about him and Deshaun Watson and measuring up. And when that happened last season, when Patrick Mahomes came into town and Mahomes just beat the crap out of the Chicago Bears, it looked bad for Mitch then. It looked really bad for Ryan Pace. But there is a little bit of solace, I think, or whatever the word is, that they can both, Ryan Pace and Mitch Trubisky, can walk away with this win today.
Yeah, they did, like I said before, they did enough to win this game. They move to 6-7. Now, that being said, for those people that are still holding out for the Bears to, fall ass backwards into the playoffs, the Vikings lost today, so there is that possibility. On a more holistic look, Aldo, does this move the needle at all as far as, they could get into the playoffs, and once they get into the playoffs, anything could happen. And now, and then the other side of that is, are we really going to talk about Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace coming back if they make it to the playoffs? So what are some of the possible outcomes here? Because the Bears, if they take care of business against the Vikings next week, and I'm not anticipating this team making the playoffs. I don't think they're going to run the table and go 9-7. I think the Packers might still have something to play for in the last week, so they're going to get the best out of Green Bay. I still think that they're going to have a handful with the Vikings, and then they got to take care of business against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who has played teams pretty tough. I mean, the record doesn't speak for as close as some of those games have been. Overall, does this inch you closer to, hey, let's make a playoff push? Or is it still a team that's like, okay, we're rebuilding for 2021?
Yeah, I think that what is probably going to happen with this team is that they're going to perhaps make a good push for a playoffs. They're probably going to fall short because there's two teams ahead of them. There's the Vikings and the Cardinals in that wild card playoff berth. But, hey, if they make the playoffs, that's a good thing. I know there are still some inherent problems with this team, but I'd rather have Mitch Trubisky, this faulty offensive line, this coaching staff that I hate. I'd rather have them in the playoffs than us picking a draft pick in the 20s, than us picking a draft pick 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and not make the playoffs. I'm about winning, building a winning culture here. I'm about really developing these other young players. Like I said in our halftime report, there's the Darnell Mooneys, there's the Cole Kmets, there's the Alex Bars, the Sam Mustafers, all of these young players that you want to give them extra games. You want them to play in playoff competition. And you never know. Perhaps this team gets hot. Perhaps all of a sudden what we've been waiting for from Mitch Trubisky for the last several years comes to fruition in some way that gives us a win in the playoffs. You know, I'm a fan. I still hold out hope every week, every possibility. The realist in me says that Mitch Trubisky is not going to be the quarterback for the Chicago Bears, that he still has problems processing, that he still has issues, finding that second, third receiver. We saw it today. I mean, we saw a very simplified game plan. And what is going to be interesting next week, when the next week's opponent starts to plot against the Chicago Bears offense, is they're going to see this. Okay, they took this simplified approach. This is how we beat them and so forth. Let's see if the Bears coaching staff and Mitch Trubisky can respond to those adjustments the opponents are going to make after they take a look at this Bears Texans tape.
I appreciate your eternal hopefulness and positivity, and it's nice to think about. But we saw a very simplified game plan that was going to be good enough to beat a really bad team. And then whenever they're going against better teams, they're not going to be able to get away with that. And we're going to see some of the same things that we saw during this 6-game losing streak. I'm not trying to poo-poo the fact that they won today. I'm glad they won today. They needed to break this streak just for some mental health in that locker room to get a win. But at the same time, you talked about you'd rather make the playoffs than, pick 8th overall. But I think what we're heading towards more is that really crappy NFL purgatory area where they go 8-8 or 7-9, and then they don't make the playoffs, or maybe even they go 9-7 and miss the playoffs, and then they're still picking 15th or 16th. And I think out of all three possibilities of whether it's getting a top 10 pick, which I don't think is going to happen now, or making the playoffs, which I never thought was going to happen in the last month or so, I think we're much more likely to just miss out on the playoffs and then pick really late in the teens. So I think that's the worst case scenario for a lot of this. But the fact of the matter is they still won today. And I'm not trying to be like, I don't want to be that beacon of negativity. I'm glad they won and they're moving forward. And I see that Tyler just got in on the post-game show, and he's always the eternal optimist. So I can't wait to hear from him. But there's no denying that Mr. Trubisky played well today with that game plan. And they did enough to go against a really dilapidated defense. We will see with a week of film for the other teams, for Minnesota to look at this, if that simplified game plan can work, because it works because Mitch has always killed the Lions. He's always been the lion killer. Well, the Lions have been bad. So and he played really well against the Texans. Texans are terrible. Let's see, and I'm not saying the Vikings are anything special, but let's see how he does next week. It was promising, but we can see, but let's not act like one game is going to erase years of what we've seen in the past. Tyler, I'm going to bring you in now because you told me at halftime, make sure you're talking up my boy Mitch, and I know that you've been I'm sure you watched the game and you saw everything that happened there. What was your takeaway?
Hey, John, do me one quick favor, bro. Who played quarterback for us again today?
Mitch Trubisky played quarterback.
His name is Mitch Trubisky. Oh baby, let's go. I'm sorry I'm late, fellas. I had to flip everything off my freaking desk because my man showed up. But it wasn't about what the Texans didn't do. It was how he executed, John. Great halftime showing you what Aldo killed it. I expect nothing less. And so I had to take care of a couple things. But, all three phases, bro, we executed. Mitch looked poised. Even the delayed passes, even when he was getting sacked. Take a sack. No interceptions? What? Let's go, dog. That's what I'm talking about. But it sucks that this had to happen when we talk about the hot seat. I think Nagy got tired of his job being on the line every press conference. So stay away from the play calling if you had nothing to do with it. But Mitch Trubisky looked the part, John. It's about throwing to the open receiver, the slant routes across the middle, the out routes, the dump offs to the running backs. He executed in every freaking phase, even after he took the sack. That's the first down, John.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're getting this out now because you're probably only gonna get about 3 more games of Mitch Trubisky before we can't talk about him in the Bears uniform anymore. But he did play well. He executed well. Is a high completion percentage. He ends up going 24 of 33 for 3 touchdowns, no picks, like you mentioned. That game plan was perfect for who they played. I'm not going to try to be super negative about this. He played well. He was a big reason they won the day. They scored 30 points in the first half, kind of parked the bus in the second half, but nevertheless, they did enough to win this game. One thing that I wanted to talk about, which I didn't get a chance to address earlier in the week, is Aldo, when we were doing Buffon 55, and I kind of kicked you off the show for saying they might extend Mr. Trubisky. You didn't say that, but I thought you were talking crazy, and I was like, before you even go into that realm, I need to get you out of here. But we got a lot of feedback on Twitter saying that, would you rather have Foles? Of course they're going to bring Trubisky back next year. They can just cut Foles. If this were college, that would be fine. But the problem is there are contracts involved in the NFL. They are basically contractually obligated to bring back Nick Foles next year. They really don't have a choice over it. They can cut him loose, but they still got to pay him his entire salary and more so on that contract. Mr. Trubisky is not contractually obligated to come back next year. That's why I said I don't think he will be back next year, because they have to bring back Foles, and then they're going to obviously make another move, whether it be in the draft or free agency again. So when everyone's saying Foles is awful, of course they're going to bring back Trubisky and let Foles go. That doesn't make sense in the NFL business world. You can't do that. It's as much as Trubisky might be better than Foles, they have to pay Foles, and they're going to bring him back. And there's a chance that Nick Foles is your week 1 starter for the Chicago Bears in 2021. We don't have to get too far ahead of ourselves, but that's a real possibility, because he'll be the only quarterback under contract. And if they bring in a developmental quarterback and he's not ready to start week 1, Nick Foles could potentially be your week 1 starter in 2021. That being said, I think Mitch like I said at halftime, Mitch put together some good tape for his next gig. Who knows where it's going to be? Is there a possibility in Chicago? Maybe. I don't think it is, but he's putting together some good games for wherever he does go. They're going to see what he can do with a simplified game plan, kind of touchdown to check down mentality, hitting the open guy and rolling out and, going off of play action, which I wish they were going to be doing. I wish they did a whole lot more this year. I wish they would have rolled him out of the pocket a lot more. I wish they would have let him be a little more mobile and do some of the things that made him successful in 2018 when they won the division. So overall, it was a good game.
John, 1 point, bro. 1 point. You're missing one thing. Mr. Trubisky coming back. Why should he come back? Look how we treated him.
Well, yeah.
But look how we treat them every time. We can't be with these fair weather. Oh, we got to take the bad with the good. If I'm Mr. Trubisky, I'm going to free agency. I want to see my worth. Look what Cam Newton did. Every single person that said Ryan Pace didn't bring in Cam Newton, look what Cam doing up in New England. Put Mr. Trubisky with the athleticism. I'm not saying he's the GOAT. I'm not saying he's the second coming. But from his athletics, John, from a pure execution perspective, when he has a proper game plan with decent protection, look what he can do.
But where's he going to go? That's what I'm saying. If I'm his agent, I'm going to say, where his start? If I'm his agent, I'm thinking you probably have a better chance of starting in Chicago than you do anywhere else. So, but I don't think the Bears are going to want to bring him back, or it's in the cards to bring him back. He can go. I don't know where he's going to go. I don't know where he's going to go.
They will be foolish to not try to bring him back. Then you're
going to carry 3 quarterbacks next year.
Bro, win the freaking Super Bowl. I don't care about all these.
You're not going to win it with Mitch.
We're not diving that deep into the future. All you can control is what you can control right now.
Yeah.
We definitely got to draft a quarterback. Mitch is more than capable of leading this team. He played better.
You bring Foles back, so you're rostering 3 quarterbacks.
Bro, it is what it is. We carry 10 tight ends. How stupid was that?
I get that, but at the same time, what if Mitch is going to go get the best deal that he can get in free agency? The Bears aren't going to overpay for a 1-year deal for Mitch Trubisky, pay Nick Foles, and then bring in a developmental quarterback.
Right.
If he gets any deal it's going to be if he goes and gets a $4 or $5 million deal from someone to be a backup, the Bears aren't going to pay him $6 million, pay Foles, $10 million, $12 million, and then draft another quarterback. It's just logistically it's not really in the cards unless he's going to take a serious hometown discount and say, I'll come back for 1 year, $1 million. And then they carry 3 quarterbacks. He'll get more than that on the open market, probably.
Guys, let me share with you. Let me bring everybody back down to reality. You got to remember who they played today. This was a Houston,
Yes.
Texas team. I've got the stats down on the screen. They have given up 410 yards per game or 406 yards per game this season. They were ranked 30th in defense. The Bears got 410. So about the same thing. The same thing with the passing offense. They were averaging 150 yards rushing per game. The Bears got 169. The Texans were giving up 255 yards passing per game. The Chicago Bears got 267. So just like last week, the numbers were about what that defense does. The Detroit Lions defense and the Houston Texans defense. So it's not like Mitch went out there and threw 10 touchdown passes and this offense got 800 yards. Now, I'm exaggerating. I'm using hyperbole here to make my point. But my point is that the expectation is there. Against this lousy defense, he should have gotten those amount of yards. He should have gotten the offense should have gotten those amount of rushing yards. So let's not, pretend that this is all of a sudden that the offense is fixed and that Mr. Trubisky is the next coming of God and so forth. No, there's still some problems, and I need to see more before I say, okay, Mitch Trubisky could potentially be a franchise quarterback. Now, to John's point, and what was talked about, if there is a 1-year contract available and we carry 3 quarterbacks, Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky, and a developmental quarterback that we draft in the second round, because all of the great quarterbacks are gone in the first round when you pick, I wouldn't be pissed off about that. I might support that. But remember, bottom line is this defense that they played today was just as bad as the defense that they played last week, and the numbers show it.
And Aldo, with that, we have to understand, just because the other team is bad doesn't mean you got to play bad. Our problem is we've been playing down to the freaking competition. So it's freaking really refreshing to see our team play the way that we. Is this what Nagy sees in practice every week? Maybe this is why Nagy says we had a good play, because maybe this is what he expects. You go out there, throw the ball, catch the freaking ball. Look at David Montgomery going through the A-gap. Look at how the protection was. Look how the protection was for Mitch. Look how even when the drag came across the middle, Mitch didn't rush the throw to get an interception like we saw some Hall of Fame quarterbacks do today. We saw Patrick Mahomes get a 30-yard sack off of a scramble. If Mitch would have did it, we would have been burning down the freaking city, God forbid. But the fact is he executed. I'm not worried about how bad the other team was. He executed the play. That alone is deserves a round of applause. And so not playing down the competition. Deshaun Watson, do you know how many times he's been scrutinized against these guys? He could have easily laid down. And he didn't, John.
I get it. And I'm glad, like I said before, I'm glad they won. I'm glad that they performed. But we're setting the bar so low now that doing what you're supposed to do is like winning a Super Bowl. They're not going to throw a ticker tape parade because they beat the Houston Texans, who are terrible. So I'm glad. And once again, they did what they had to do. We would have been all over them if they would have played down to the Texans, and this would have been a 3-point game, 2-point game, or heaven forbid they lost this game at home. We would have been ripping them. So I'll give them props for taking care of business and doing what they need to do. But I just think there's a lot of flimsiness here for a lot of, I'm not saying anybody on this particular show, but I'm saying there's going to be a lot of people saying, look what they did against the Texans, as if the last 6 weeks didn't exist.
No.
So, I'm interested. I'm sure that Nagy's going to come to the podium and talk like, oh man, this is what we've been seeing all year. And he's going to, they won the Super Bowl and the guys never give up. And we're going to have a nice big bowl of Nagy word soup like we always do, but it's going to be a lot more lighthearted, and he's not going to talk about the negatives because they won, just like whenever they were 5-1 and there was obvious problems. He didn't want to talk about it because they were winning and they were 5-1. So I know that this is like the post-game react to this particular game. I'm still trying to look at this entire franchise holistically and see that there are still things. Are we really going to just try to run it back like this? I don't think that that's the right thing to do. And so we'll see what they do for the rest of the season. They could potentially, like I said, fall backwards into the playoffs, and then we have to have a whole other conversation about what to do. But they took care of business today, and my fear is that they're going to be in that weird 8-8 7-9 area where they miss the playoffs and get a crappy draft pick anyway. So that's my big concern here is that it's not just it's in that no man's land where it's like you're not bad enough to get a really good draft pick, you're not good enough to make the playoffs, so you're just spinning your tires in the middle. And I think that's kind of where the Bears are headed.
A lot of comments in the chat room about where was David Montgomery? And I think that's a good question to ask. I mean, you get out to this fast lead, and yet the game only ends with Montgomery getting 11 carries and Cordero Patterson only getting 6 carries. Trubisky had 4, Mooney had 1, Javon Wims had 1. The whole Javon Wims thing, by the way, is a discussion that we have to have either on this show or later. Yeah. But, you get out to a lead, you should be protecting this lead and really punishing teams. Hey, I know that the game of the offensive game in the NFL has changed and that the lateral pass is an extension of the run game and blah, blah, blah. But there's still something about punishing your opponent with a run game. And you've got punishing running backs, both David Montgomery, Cordero Patterson, and even Ryan Nall, in my opinion, are guys that can lower their shoulder and really put the bang on an opposing defense and really hurt them. Look what Cordero Patterson did on one play to, I think his name was Mooney, something like that. And so, applause for the play calling and scheming to a certain degree. But again, in the second half, just like last week against the Detroit Lions, they sort of abandoned the run game when Chicago Bears football is you got a lead, let's bang them, let's punch them in the face, let's control the game, let's control the clock and so forth. And so I didn't see that. And so those people who are bringing it up in the chat room, kudos to you.
It's a valid point because you're up by 23, and I just think it's in this coach's DNA to not, and this coaching staff's DNA to not just abandon the run game, because we saw what it did in the first quarter, or we saw what it did in the first half, and then they didn't rely on it. When you're up by 23 points, and we saw whether they were playing conservative enough, or they thought they had a good enough lead that they didn't have to really go after more points. They got 2 field goals in the second half. So I mean, and that was enough. They didn't need any more. I'm not saying that they had to go out and just attack. But you would have liked to have seen the running game, or you like to see Montgomery get a few more carries, because that's the guy that's going to be able to eat the clock, eat up some yards, and kind of play that conventional, like you said, Chicago Bears salt away the victory kind of thing. And so I'm not sure what happened there, and I'm not sure we're going to have any light shed on that in the press conference either.
Well, yeah, let's hope that one of the reporters asked that question. We've got a lot of the Chicago Bears beat reporters get a lot of crap, but I think we've got some good ones in there, and I'm sure somebody like a JJ Stankovitz or an Adam Hogue will ask that question if they get an opportunity to.
Gentlemen, full transparency. They didn't have Will Fuller. They didn't have Cooks. Some of their starting wide receivers that would normally take that safety away off look. So the defense was able to eat. It really felt like I was watching Jaws. Every time Watson went back, I'm like, dun-dun-dun-dun, they coming. I mean, Mario Edwards, all these guys were relentless. I think we had 5-6 plus sacks maybe this game. And so, from A gap to D gap, even when Watson would do this little spinner Rooney, like that Russell Wilson does, guys were there. But without those 2 primary receivers, but you know what? I don't care about those excuses, because you know what? When Chicago didn't have receivers, they didn't give us the benefit of the doubt. We were just noted a sorry team. This was a place where wide receivers came to die. But look at freaking Allen Robinson, guys. Catching the freaking ball across the middle. An extension should be guaranteed for this man. If not, he's going to go be a top flight on somebody else's team. But the fact of the matter is, Allen Robinson is a legit number 1 wide receiver who is physical enough to get open. And Mitch Trubisky, I credit him for some of those passes. Those were timing routes. The guys were open. Mitch threw them open. The reason why, I'm going to try to calm down a little bit. The reason why is all freaking week I hear these trade for this quarterback, this whack quarterback, this quarterback. I'm like, guys, stop. Don't trade a problem for a problem. I'm not saying Mitch is perfect, but those other guys, for example, I must talk about it. Dak Prescott, a really good quarterback, but benefited from one of the best lines ever in NFL history. And so when you put a quarterback who is not as mobile, they're probably on the same level behind this, it's going to be horrible. Putting Mitch into the fire and seeing what he can do was paid dividends. Those little 20 yards that Mitch got that still kept the drive alive even after a sack. And so it's these little nuances that play dividends. A big thing about today, guys, that we talked about it before, no Buster Screen. I hope he's healthy. I wish him well. But the fact that Buster Screen not being a liability on defense is the reason why we were able to get off the field on third down. What do you guys think?
Yeah, as far as the defense, and side note, I like Dak Prescott, but we can talk about that another day. But on the defensive side of the ball, I thought they did really well. And like you said, they came hungry today. One notable thing, I didn't see a lot of Robert Quinn. I saw Mario Edwards making plays. I saw Brent Urban getting in there. Khalil Mack obviously put his stamp on the game, and I think that they all played pretty well. I still wish that we'd get a little more out of Robert Quinn as far as what they're paying him for and what you want to get there. I'd love to see him I'd like to see him get in the stat column a couple times. But overall, like you said, they were at Aldo. I think you tweeted out how long is Deshaun Watson going to last behind this Texas O-line? The next play, he got knocked out of the game, so it wasn't very long. So they came hungry after the quarterback today, and they played well, knowing that there was going to be some liabilities at wide receiver, knowing that they didn't have a lot of playmakers. Will Fuller's not there. They had a couple guys out. Knowing that they were going against some ragtag receivers, they did the right thing. They got aggressive. They made Watson uneasy at times. They made him scramble for his life and try to make plays on the fly. They did play well, and aside from that one long drive, they held them in check the entire game. So it's pretty. That was impressive. That was encouraging after what we saw last week.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tyler. What was your question again?
Pretty much without Buster Screen, in my opinion, I feel like the slot wasn't a liability. Some of these losses that we've had, if you go back, it was the slot position that these quarterbacks were attacked on third and short, third and long. And so I saw some Duke Shelley in there. I like that. And so what were your thoughts on the defense being able to get off the field?
Yeah, I was impressed with the play of Duke Shelley today, and I'm anxious to see Kindle Vildor in there, the mid-round draft pick. I think those two guys were drafted to give us some insurance at that slot cornerback position. And Buster Screen has just been below average all season. He's got some good qualities, but he really is a guy that should be a backup defensive back. He really should not be out there with the starters. And so you've drafted two slot cornerbacks in each of the last 2 years. You've drafted a slot cornerback, and so it's time to get those guys some playing time. They certainly Shelley looked good today, and there's no reason why he shouldn't get another shot at it and get Vildor some playing time there as well. So I like what the defense did in terms of getting off the field. There was that one long drive. It was a 17-play drive, but the Bears did hold them. They got, they turned it over on downs, and then the very next series, 4 downs, and they turn it over. So one series, a 17-play series that they turn over on downs inside the red zone near the goal line, and then the very next series, 4 plays and out. So that to me almost is epitomizes what the Chicago Bears defense has been this year. They sometimes would just smash you in the mouth and look outstanding, and then other times it's like, guys, get off the field, 17 plays. Right. But they managed to on this. And then one other thing about this Bears defense that and the Bears team as a whole that I was really impressed with, and this was in the first half, the Bears defense picks up that safety. Bilal Nichols gets that great sack near the goal line, and then Khalil Mack finishes off. We get a safety, and then they kick the ball, punt the ball back to the Chicago Bears, and we score a touchdown. You know how huge that is? Because that's this. That's, the defense did their job. The offense then comes and does their job. That's 9 points, and that's the way Chicago Bear football should be. The defense does it, and then the offense follows up.
I'm trying to temper my emotions. I'm trying to like relax because it was a 6-game skid, John. But I'm happy, man. I can't contain it.
No, be happy. I know I probably don't look it, but I am happy that they won. But it's rare that we see the offense and defense firing at the same time. Usually it's one or the other, and we actually saw them
special teams
as well. So we don't see that synergy a lot on this team, and I'm glad that we got to see.
There was early on in the game.
I feel like we got Matt Nagy coming up.
Yes, we do. I apologize. Here it comes.
Make some plays with his legs, and he did that early for the first few drives. I thought we did a better job of keeping contain on him. And then when you do that, you force him, and then you get a lead, you're able to kind of pin your ears back and let the guys that we have up front go after the quarterback. And that's what happens. It accumulates over time. And it's just kind of like body shots. And then the further, the bigger lead that you get, the more you can see that. And then, they become one-dimensional. And when you make the team one-dimensional, that's when the statistics come on the defensive side of the ball. In regards to Jalen, for him, I'll have to get more from Andre, but I know it's his shoulder. It was the third quarter. He didn't finish. And, he's questionable. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that here moving forward and see the significance of that. I honestly, I haven't even gone to that part yet with Andre.
Dan Wiederer.
Matt, you mentioned sensing some energy in the pregame. I'm curious what exactly you were dialed in on in terms of the vibe of the guys. And then also there's an element of where has this been to the offensive explosion? How do you explain that, where this sort of outburst has been?
So I would say offensively, like I've been saying for the last 3 weeks, I think we're starting to create an identity. You're feeling it. You're seeing it on the scoreboard. And so when you have that and we're not having a lot of third downs. We were getting a lot of third downs early in the season. We're not now. We're scoring points. There's a confidence right now in this offense. And that part I appreciate from these players of saying, you know what, we're going to figure this thing out. We're going to get it. So that's happened there. And then, I don't know. It's just a little something that I just kind of noticed. You never know what it means. But I felt the energy. I felt the guys playing loose. I felt them having that focus. And sometimes you just feel that. And that's a credit to them, man. I don't know if they had a bunch of coffee or what they had pregame, but it worked.
Mike Berman.
Matt, that first play from scrimmage, Montgomery ripped off an 80-yard touchdown run. How big was that, and what was the impact on the sideline of a play like that to get things going?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, anytime you score an 80-yard touchdown run on the first play of the game, you get 7 points, and your line blocks, your quarterback makes the right decision, and your wide receivers block, and then your running back finishes, and you get 7-0 lead. It's a pretty cool deal. So we want to keep that going, and I think that helped us get going along with the defense playing fast.
Pat Finley.
Hey, Matt, you talked about getting an identity on offense the last couple of weeks. What have you seen that leads you to think that it'll work against maybe some stouter defenses that you have coming up?
I'm not sure. I think we're just going to play whoever they put in front of us and see where it goes.
Adam Hogue.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that identity that you were even talking about coming into this week. How did you describe that identity and what you were established today as you were starting to get into a rhythm?
I think you got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to pass protect. You got to make good decisions. And then when you get the football in your hand, you got to be able to make plays. And our guys did that today. I thought our coaches did a hell of a job, all of us, of communicating and being able to talk through what we like. And then the players got to execute it. They did that. So when we're able to do that, it gives you a chance to score points.
Mark Potash.
Hey, man, when Mac is engaged, obviously makes a big difference for your defense. But I know Hicks had a couple plays early, but that strip and recovery by Mac seemed to really ignite things. How much of an impact do you think that had? And just to have him in general playing, that like he does in the game, like how big a difference is that for you?
Yeah, he's an impact player, And so when you make impact plays, you see it, and you get a safety at that point in time to get the ball back, to get 2 points, to beat guys one-on-one. I mean, he's been doing that all year long in a lot of different ways. He's had a couple sacks called back from him, and but that's a part of the game. But trust me, man, he wants it, and he showed it today, and he's going to continue to keep doing that.
Kevin Fishbane.
Matt, was this kind of a game you've envisioned for Mitch? Just the way he got into rhythm, getting him out in the play action and on the move. Was this kind of him putting everything together, and both him, the receivers, the play calling, everything kind of coming together?
Yeah, this I thought it was great, and again, I go back to that Green Bay game. We got behind really early, but he was doing it then. I thought last week he played a really good game, decision making, making plays. He's in a good place right now, and he's executing what we're asking him to do. I appreciate that about him. He's practicing really, really well. He's leading, all that stuff right now, and then ultimately what you got to look at for us as coaches is you got to say, are you scoring points? Mm-hmm. Are you scoring points? And so when you score points, you have a chance to win. And we're scoring points right now. And, some of the stuff we're doing, using his legs and doing different things schematically, is able to give us an advantageous in the plays. And I appreciate that. He's doing great.
Couple more for Coach. JJ?
Ed, you talk about that identity. It's kind of easy to notice that some of David's best games recently have come with Sam Mustipher in at center. How much of a part of that identity, being able to run the ball, has he been for you guys?
Huge. That consistency when you have an offensive line and you don't have guys hurt, you don't have, dominoes on that front line. It's hard, and so right now we're seeing it offensively. That's a part of the identity that we've been talking about is you have guys that communicate. You have a guy like Sam Mustipher that comes in and has an opportunity to make plays, and he's done that. He's a great leader. Alex Bars to come on in and fill these roles. Jermaine Ifedi to kick out the tackle and do a heck of a job. For Cody Whitehair to be selfless and go back to left guard. For Leno to stay consistent all year long and help us with that experience. And these guys, I would say, you look back at one of the negatives that we had today was probably the false starts, right? The false starts we had on offense with 7 penalties. I think 4 were on offense with the false starts. Those guys know that. They admitted it. They knew it. We know the whys. We got to eliminate that. I thought that put us in a hole a little bit, but the other stuff, these guys are they're clicking right now, and you're seeing it offensively.
Andy?
Yeah, Matt, did you sense any extra chip on Mitch's shoulder this week with all the talk about Watson?
No, zero. I think he's been locked in. He's been focused in on trying to help this team win. That's the only thing that honestly, when I say that, some may not believe me, but that's the only thing that we cared about this week was how do we find a way to win? We don't care what the score is. We're going to find a way to win and be able to just appreciate each other and how hard we play. So not one time did any of that stuff come up. That's just how we work.
Last one, Dan?
Matt, with some of the tempo stuff you guys have done, what's been your assessment of some of those sequences where you've been able to break the huddle and go and what those have done for momentum?
Yeah, what it does is it keeps the defense off balance in regards to the tempo. There's different things we can do off of it. I think that's a part of our identity. If you look back, we haven't done as much of it in the past. We're starting to do a little bit more, and now we just got to stay ahead of these defenses as to when and how we do it. So it's been helping us. Some of that stuff with the false starts you run into is with the cadence, but we've got to practice it. We got to be good at it, and then we got to make them guess when it's coming and what we're doing.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, guys.
All right, fellas. What do you take away from that?
Seems more frigid when they won than whenever they lost. I mean, very, very pointed answers, very cliche answers, very like you can kind of just wind them up, and no matter if they win or lose, it's going to be the same thing. Sometimes you like the fact that someone can be calm, cool, and collected whether you win or lose, kind of like that Nick Foles kind of confidence. But that I don't know. Yeah, he obviously. I don't know. I'm left kind of not speechless, but I don't know how to react to it because it was kind of the same as what we always get, which is fine. They won the game. He gave props to the people who won. I thought it was interesting that he said that Leno's been consistent all year, but and I will say that as the season has gone by and the Bears, they start 5-1, they lose 6, and then they're here. Some of the comments from our listeners in this chat room have been fantastic when Nagy's at the podium, just about some of these things about getting at the quotes and what Nagy's saying or getting inside of Nagy's head. I enjoy watching the comments from our listeners more than I sometimes enjoy actually listening to Matt Nagy. I like seeing how they respond to it. But yeah, that was kind of your run-of-the-mill Nagy press conference. I was expecting him to announce when the victory parade was, but he was pretty laid back there, I guess.
Tyler?
When I come down to earth, John, my issue with the win is it saves us from making changes that may need to happen.
Media with Mitch Trubisky with us, and we can get underway here.
Well, we got Mitch.
First
Hold
up,
on.
Adam Hogue.
Hey, Mitch. Coming into this game, Matt talked a little bit about you guys establishing an identity on offense, and he said it again after this game with all the success you guys had today. How would you describe that identity that you guys are starting to develop?
In week 14.
I think just a balanced football team. I think we just need to continue to run the ball well, and off that, just have a bunch of movements and nakeds, and just keep taking what the defense gives us. And you see the positive plays on first and second down. If you could just stay out of those third and long situations, which we have, and we're just keep moving the ball downfield and keep our defense off the field, and let them do their thing. I think we're just starting to establish rhythm on offense. And then the defense doesn't necessarily know what's coming. They're running the pass, and we're able to avoid third downs and just move the ball down the field and stay in rhythm. So it's an ongoing progress. We're still trying to establish that identity, but I think we're starting to find one. And just the way these guys are working in practice, I think it's a testament to just how we went out there today, and it's starting to come to life with the execution.
JJ?
Mitch, kind of following on that, when you see David having the kind of game that he had today and has had really ever since you got back in there at starting quarterback, what does that do for your own comfort, and how does that impact the offense as a whole?
I think it's huge. I think today it really all started with the offensive line up front, and they sprung David free on the first play, and to start a game with an explosive play for a touchdown like that, I think it sends a message to the whole team and to everyone about the mindset that we came out and played with today. So hats off to the offensive line. They played a great game, and David's always running his tail off. And it's just all 11 guys playing as one. I think a lot of times today you saw guys continue to block hard downfield, just being selfless, putting their bodies on the line for the guy next to them. Doing those little things is what is going to make this offense just continue to get better. And I'm just proud of these guys.
Mike Berman?
Mitch, you were so efficient early on, and especially through the first half. How did that help you build some rhythm and some confidence, and how do you assess your day as a whole?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was efficient again. Like I said, I just went out there today and took what the defense gave us. They tried to show some different looks and mixed up some man and zone, but I just wanted to find the underneath completions and let these skill players just go to work with the ball in their hands, make them tackle all our ball carriers. And we had some good stuff in the run game that definitely helped us in the pass game. And for me, it just allowed me to find completions, take us down the field. And it was really good that we finished in the end zone. So we just want to keep finishing with touchdowns and keep continuing to get better. I thought we could have locked in a little more of the second half and really finished some more drives off with touchdowns instead of field goals. But I think that's something we could build off of this week. But the way we're working in practice right now, our mindset of these guys, just the way they're coming to work, they deserve this win today. So I'm really happy for them.
Kevin Fishbane?
It's that second touchdown drive when you went 8 for 8, the finishing with the touchdown to Jimmy. It just seemed like you were dialed in, and you guys as a whole group, that kind of set the tone. What was it like just to be in that type of zone, just because the offense has had so many challenges this season?
Yeah, it felt good. I think dialed in would be a good word for it, because I don't even necessarily remember that. Today, my goal was to go out there and be present, just play each play as its own entity, and whatever happens, happens. And then the next play, it's a next play mentality. So every single time I was just trying to go out there and find completions, and I think that's what just allowed me to be focused and dialed in today. And then as soon as that play ended, I just forgot about it, moved on to the next one, and focused on the next task at hand. So that's what these guys deserve out of me, and that's what I just need to continue to do. And when you have 10 guys around you playing so well, like the way they did today, it makes my job a lot easier.
Pat Finley?
Mitch, to that point, Matt Nagy was saying that all week he sensed that all you were worried about was getting the win and not the Deshaun Watson storyline or anything like that. How did you do that, and was that hard to do?
I think I was just so focused on what I need to do for my team that it really allowed me to block everything else out. Just the situation where we were in, being on that little losing streak. That makes you sick to your stomach. So I was willing to do whatever it took for the team today to just go out there and get a win, whether it was handing the ball off every time or throwing it every time. Obviously, that's extreme, but I was willing to do whatever it took to get out here and get a win, and that's what we did. I thought we played really well today. It was a great team win. All three phases really stuck together, and we just got to continue to finish in the second half. But it was just easy to block out because I knew what I was focused on doing today.
Dan Wiederer?
Last one, guys.
Mitch, I was curious what your vantage point was on the touchdown pass to A-Rob based on the pressure they brought, and obviously just getting rid of it quick.
Yeah, they brought pressure. We only had 5-man protection, being an empty, and I was just looking at the matchups across the board. I like A-Rob's matchup, and they dropped out a whole player late, but he beat his guy across the face, and I just threw around the whole player dropping out. And when A-Rob's matched up one-on-one, that's something we like to take advantage of. So he made a great play. Offensive line did a great job picking up the blitz, and I got to throw hot off the next guy, which I did, and we just made a play. So it's huge for us to finish those drives with touchdowns and not field goals.
Also curious from your perspective, when you guys go up-tempo out of the huddle and then get the playoff really quick, how that helps you personally?
It helps declare the defense what they're in faster, because we could snap the ball right away or we could check to something else. So I think it's just a mechanism for us that I think it really dials our guys in, because there's no dilly-dallying or anything. You got to get up, get to the line, know your assignment, and the defense has to get in their assignment either, because there's a couple times that we can get them out of position by using that tempo. And that's something we just continue to need to emphasize, is using our tempo in and out of the huddle, changing it up, and keep the defense off balance, but continue to stay balanced within ourselves. So I think it's been positive. I think it's been working for us, and we just need to keep getting better at it.
2 more for Mitch.
All right.
Jason Leisure.
That's enough for me. What do you guys think of?
Allen Robinson?
Oops, let me get rid of that.
I'll let Tyler go. He's the Mitch guy.
I am the Mitch guy. Yeah. I mean, he's just like we got a lot of comedy in the chat, John. You're right. The chat is going crazy, and so the fact of the matter is, Mitch is a good guy. We know he's a good guy. He is going to do what it takes to win. I do wish he would get upset sometimes more when he doesn't play well, get upset at the system. But he's a good kid. It's hard to root against a guy who just loves his teammates so much. It's hard to root against a guy who's so respectful and plays his position. He's not trying to be the owner. He's not trying to be the GM. He's just trying to be the quarterback of Chicago Bears. And, John, that's what I saw today, Aldo. He marches down the field. He got the first downs. That's the type of guy I'm going to root for. And I really want to say this real quick and get you guys' take. Aldo, you and Mike North did a heck of a job this week talking about it. Like, we don't appreciate him right now. When he goes to somebody else's team and he leads that team to the playoffs, it shouldn't take that, but that's what might happen. And so I will say that. But Mitch, I'm riding with Mitch. That's my guy. I was draft night. It caught me by surprise too. I was all in on. I wanted Deshaun Watson. I will tell the truth. But when I saw the character of Mitch and how he loves his teammates, how he went to North Carolina because he couldn't play in Ohio. He was the backup. He fought to get in that starter position. He didn't have a long college career. And so Matt Nagy taking these guys that were under the radar. So I believe in the underdog. And so what we saw with the proper game plan, he's going to execute. And so besides that, he's warm and fuzzy. How can you be mad at him?
No, I'll never be mad at Mitch Trubisky, the person. I think that I've rooted for him to do well. I was never, and Odo and I were in the same boat. We were never thrilled about the draft pick. But once he was the Chicago Bears starting quarterback, I know we both wanted him to flourish. I love his character. I love that the guys respect him. I love how respectful he is. And I think that it might take him going to another team to really find himself. I just don't think it's going to be here. I don't know if a 1-year deal coming back to this franchise is what he needs for his career. If there is a new coach or a new GM, are they going to want to bring back Mitchell Trubisky, knowing that was the cornerstone of the previous regime? I don't think they will. And I don't think they're going to transition tag him either, because that's going to be like $22 million against the cap if they transition tag him. I just don't think that's going to be in the plans either, given the fact that you owe Nick Foles like $14 million next year. So I don't think that's going to be something that they're going to do. But I'll be a Mitch fan where he goes. I wish him the best. You know what? He'll probably end up in New England and probably winning a Super Bowl or something like that, because what those coaches do, and I talked about this on my show earlier this week, is when you have a coach like Bill Belichick or Mike Tomlin or Pete Carroll or even Mike Vrabel. They tailor things to what they have. Look at all of the different pieces that Bill Belichick has had throughout this year. Yeah, he's had Tom Brady, but look at some of the skill positions that he's had throughout the years. They were tight end heavy, then they were run heavy, and then they had Randy Moss, and they went vertical. Mike Tomlin had to start Duck Hodges last year as third string quarterback. They almost made the playoffs, and that was just one of his best coaching jobs ever. Mike Vrabel has resurrected Tannehill, kind of customizing the offense around Derrick Henry and then allowing Tannehill to do what he does best, move around and make plays on the run sometimes. Same with Pete Carroll when it comes to, finding Russell Wilson. And these are all, by the way, these are all defensive-minded coaches. These aren't offensive geniuses that they need to bring in, or the guys that, these aren't the Mark Trestmans or Matt Nagy's of the world. These are guys that are just good football coaches. They surround themselves with good football people, and they adapt their game plan and their philosophy to the personnel they have, something the Bears have not been able to do. So there is a real chance that Mitch Trubisky goes somewhere. A coach sees potential in him and says, we're going to tailor our offense around what you do well. I just don't know if next year he's going to be brought in and say, okay, kid, you're the starter. I don't know if that's going to be. He might need to take the Teddy Bridgewater route where he's behind somebody for a year, like he was behind Drew Brees, or Jameis Winston sitting behind Drew Brees right now. All these guys are behind Drew Brees, and maybe Andy Dalton is going to have another chance at a starting his position next year. So there will be plenty of competition out there in free agency for him to go out and just be declared the day one starter. I just don't think that's going to happen. But if he catches on with the right organization, there's no reason, and I know that there's been plenty of troubles, and I've bashed him just as much as anybody else. But if they tailor things to his strengths, he can be a serviceable quarterback. Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, it's if you follow Bears Barroom, it's no secret that I was not a big fan when they drafted Mitch Trubisky and moved up to draft him. I thought he was a second-round caliber quarterback, and I understand, that quarterbacks are highly prized, and so second-rounders are now picked in the first round, third-rounders are now picked in the second round, et cetera, et cetera. But based on what I saw, and I'm old school too, and so if you only start 1 year in college football and you're not playing against the best quality, then you gotta be careful about who you're picking. And then the eye test for me was Patrick Mahomes. He was just doing Brett Favre magician type things in Texas, and people would complain, well, that's the air raid. There's never been a good quarterback coming from the air raid and so forth. But I was like, well, the NFL is changing. They're adopting these college schemes and plays and so forth. So you got to kind of account for that. But the other reason why I was not a big fan of Mitch is if you saw that quarterback camp thing that he did with John Gruden was testing him, and there were certain things that he didn't know. He never took a snap under center in college. So there was this whole thing that he had to learn. And, perhaps Ryan Pace had the right idea, which was to sign a free agent quarterback that would allow Mitch to grow and learn. But unfortunately, that free agent quarterback was Mike Glennon. You're not going to learn anything from Mike Glennon. And you're not going to learn anything from John Fox and Dow Loggins as your first coaches. And so, the whole Ryan Pace thing about how to develop a team, how to build an organization was all cockamamie from the start. When Ryan Pace walked into that Hallis Hall, he should have said, everybody out, get your shit and get everybody out. I'm starting over. I don't care how much money we're paying Jay Cutler. I don't care how much money we're paying this guy or that guy. We're starting over and we're doing it my way. And when Ernie Arcasi says, hey, I think John Fox would be a great coach, I would have said, Ernie, get back. Thank you for getting me the job, but get back. I'm going to do it my way. And so, that's my issue with the whole Mitch Trubisky. I feel for him, and I can understand why when Ryan Pace sat down to have dinner with him and he fell in love with the guy, because the guy is charismatic, because the guy is magnetic, has a magnetic personality. When he came out dressed up as Mike Ditka, come on, how can you not like that guy? He gets it. He gets what it is to be a Chicago Bears quarterback. But the talent is slowly progressing, and in the old days, a guy like Mitch Trubisky would have taken him 2, 3, 4 years to develop. He might end up being a decent quarterback, a very good quarterback, maybe. But But in today's NFL,
that's not how it works today, Aldo.
Exactly.
But so what? But that's football, guys. It wasn't until Joe Flacco and Matt Ryan did those first-round quarterbacks have to start right away. Before, those guys will hold a clipboard for at least a year, John. Who else hold a clipboard for a year? Oh, yeah, Patrick Mahomes. Held a clipboard for a whole year.
Well, they had Alex Smith in front of them, not Mike Glennon.
Right, but that's not Mitch's fault.
I know it's not Mitch's fault. I'm not saying that this is all on Mitch. It certainly isn't, because I think things were mishandled from the beginning. In fact, all the reports say that John Fox wanted Deshaun Watson, and Ryan Pace said no. We're getting my guy, and so you bring in John Fox, who for all intents and purposes was a lame duck coach that year, giving him a quarterback he didn't really want, and so is he gonna take full responsibility to develop that guy in his rookie year? Absolutely not. So I get that he brought in the best circumstance, and the support system around him was not as high as it was for some of these other rookie quarterbacks. But there comes a point where we're going to be past year 4, where it's just like, do you want to commit another 2 years to this in hopes that it happens? And I think that the Bears are probably past that. And that's why I say that if they do get a new GM and they do get a new head coach, I just think they're going to say, let's start, like kind of like what you were saying, Aldo. Everybody in here, pack your crap and leave, because we're starting all over again. And I don't think that involves bringing in the cornerstone quarterback from the previous regime.
Tyler and I have talked about how organizations and successful businesses run. And so Tyler knows that's how it is. If I'm going to hire Tyler to be the CEO of one of my companies, I'm going to say, Tyler, take it all down. If you think, keep who you want. It's your business. The same thing should be done for a general manager. Same thing should be done for a coach. The responsibilities that he has, like for instance, the next coach should have total responsibility of hiring his assistant coaches, his coordinators, coming up with the playbook and so forth. But the GM should be in charge of making all of those decisions about who to hire to run the team on the football field and the practice. And that didn't happen with Ryan Pace. He was hamstrung with John Fox to begin with. And so that just speaks poorly for who?
The front office. Yeah.
I mean, we saw that rumor report last week that Ted Phillips could be considering retirement, retirement. I'm using the quotations for those listening to the audio only version, but so I mean that's a possibility that they go out and they get a director or a president of football operations, and then that person will go out and find the GM. The GM will have control over who the coach is going to be, and then the coach will have control over who the assistants are going to be. I mean, we've talked about. We've talked about there needs to be an organizational change on how they conduct business and how how these things are run it like an actual 2020 NFL franchise instead of your mom and pop diner kind of thing. So we'll see how that goes later on. And I get that we're getting away from the actual game that we were talking about, but that's what we have to do here. I mean, we can't talk about like beating the Texans all of a sudden. We're going to be in the playoffs. We're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Okay, we talked about this already. We talked about the game for a half an hour already. We did the post-game press conferences. Let's talk about the future of the freaking franchise now. So now we can talk about how things are actually going to be run in the end of this year and into next year and in the future, because I don't want to be back here next year talking about a 6-game losing streak and then being happy and then throwing off streamers because they beat a lowly franchise like the Texans. I don't want to be doing that in week 14 of 2021. So let's actually talk about what needs to change instead of, let's go have a we can't do it. Let's have a Zoom rally down at Lakeshore because they beat the Texans. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some of the things that actually have to be changed for this franchise to get better.
No, it's a good point. And if you listen to Buffon 55, John says that he's tired of mediocrity. He's tired of a 500 team. He's tired.
I'm tired of being happy over it's like this crap. I'm tired of this being this being the highlight of the last 7 weeks.
Right.
We beat the Texans. Whoa. No. I'm glad they won. I'm glad I want the team to win. I want this team to win more than anything sports related in my life. I want this team to win, but I don't want it to be 2021 in December thinking, Well, guys, they finally snapped that 6-game losing streak with a hell of a win over a terrible Texans team that fired their coach and their GM and didn't have their starting cornerback, and their starting wide receivers. Yay! I don't want that to be our pinnacle next year. So that's why I'm talking about things that need to change.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, real quickly, Tyler, this is why I love this show, because I feel like I am in the middle of both of you guys. Tyler is the optimist, and John is not the pessimist, but he's more of the realist and so forth. And I have a big strain of hope. I'm trying, but I'm also like John is, man, I look at this and it's like, it's not passing the eye test. This is bad, but
Yeah.
Please go ahead, Tyler.
No, John is saying what I feel in my heart. John, that rage from John is what I take to the gym. Like everything that John's talking about is 100% correctly, because we can't. Don't tell us something is good and we know it's not good. We're looking at it, and so. But the fact of the matter is, if we win out, gentlemen, we make the playoffs. The Vikings currently hold a wild card seed right now. The Vikings are holding that spot. If we beat the Vikings and beat the Jags, we finish out with the Packers. Things will get interesting. So if will they re-sign and will they do all these things? If Mr. Trubisky goes out there and wins out, Mr. Trubisky and the team, and wins the first round playoff game, things could be differently in it. But that does suck, John, because guess what? They probably will bring back the front office. So it's like it's that fine line. If we win, they're not gonna fire people. So
and trust me, I would love to see them make the playoffs this year. I think that I would love to be doing a show, previewing a Bears playoff game. I thought for sure we were going to be doing that when they were 5-1. Whenever they had like a 95% chance of making the playoffs, I was like, man, okay, even if they make it, they scrounge out a wild card win, and we're talking about a divisional round, and then anything can happen. I would love that, and I would still love that. I just in my gut, I just don't see that. If you talk about the other playoff teams like the Cardinals and the Seahawks and the Rams, and I've seen them play the Rams. And
those first two teams you just said, Cardinals and Seahawks, both they're struggling.
Let's not act like the Bears are world beaters.
Exactly. You don't got to be perfect to win, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
One win in 7 weeks doesn't mean that you can go beat the Seahawks.
But who would have thought if you lost 6 games, you would still have a shot at the playoffs?
Well, that's what happens. You start off 5-1, and that was great, and I'm glad, and that was good. And I said those banked wins, and I said this back when they were 5-1. Even if they lose a bunch, they banked so many wins that they have a cushion now. I'd much rather win those ugly games and have that cushion, because that's going to come and help it later in the season. I didn't anticipate a 6-game losing streak, but here we are where they still actually have a chance, but they're still resting on those 5 wins from the beginning of the season, which I know it doesn't matter when you get them, you still got them, but a lot has to happen for them to make the playoffs. I mean, we're talking about them winning out. If Green Bay has something to play for in the last week, okay, they still got to beat the Minnesota next week. Okay, they didn't beat them. They certainly didn't beat the Packers. They can beat the Jaguars, although the Jaguars play teams pretty tight. So I mean, we're talking about, well, when they run the table, they're gonna have a real chance to win the playoff. They won 1 game in the last 7 weeks, so with winning out still seems a bit far-fetched.
But we saw execution from Khalil Mack. When I brought up Dak Prescott, I like Dak is cool. But the silly thing I was seeing was trade Mack for Dak Prescott, and that's ridiculous. A quarterback who Dak Prescott, who turned down $35 million contract from the Cowboys, he demands $40 million. You want to trade Khalil Mack? You don't do that. Khalil Mack is a generational talent, and when generational talent shows up, you get results like this. If you're going to go against Aaron Rodgers, against the quarterbacks that we have in this division, you're going to need that kind of pressure. I'm glad, what's the name? The guy from the Cowboys didn't show up today. Get Edwards, get somebody in there. Who cares how much they're getting paid? Get guys in there who want to make plays. Mario Edwards stepped up. I think he had 2 sacks today. Who cares how much he's getting paid? Guys are playing for that next contract deal. So if guys are going to come in and play tight like this, man coverage like this, then I'm all for it. I'm all for it. We will never know the truth, John. I want to hear from the defensive coach. What did you do differently this game than last game? What was the difference between this team that I think is probably better than the Lions? What was different? What was the play calling for the offense? I hadn't seen this much consistency in getting Mitch out that pocket, changing his launch point. Mitch holding onto the ball 1 second longer for the running back to get all the way across the field and throw him open. He threw the guys open, John, so they can get that yak. It's that yak. That's that makes a difference in the game. It's that run after contact that makes a difference in the game. Those are the things that I can get pumped up about. If we're going to play Bears football, we got to be physical. And we were physical today.
Yeah, and I will say that the players don't care about draft positioning. The players don't care about the coach's future or the GM's future. I mean, they might care for other reasons, but they care about going out and playing and, first of all, not getting hurt. Second of all, playing to the best of your potential because you're still playing in your own career. Let's not – some of these guys, they may be with the Bears, they may not be, but they have to keep playing well. And so if they can get another contract, be it with Chicago or be it with another team, they're professional football players. So they're going to go out. They're not going to go lay down. They're going to go and they're going to do their best. They're going to try to be the best professional they can because this is their livelihood. I didn't expect the Bears to roll over. I don't expect a lot of teams to just roll over, although you can maybe make an exception for the Texans today. They didn't look all that good. But these are professional football players that have a lot of pride. They've always, you have to have some sort of pride to make it to this level. So you have to be, you've always been the best, whether it was in high school, college, and coming up, you've always been the best. And if you don't, it really pisses you off if you're not winning. So these guys have a certain edge to them. They know that their livelihood depends on how well they play, whether it's being in a contract extension or even hitting free agency and getting a bigger contract because you show out. These guys are going to go out and play hard. So yeah, I don't expect them to roll over the next 3 games. And it is encouraging to see what they put out today. One thing that this franchise hasn't had is a lot of consistency. So there were very little expectations today. No one expected basically everybody picked them to lose to the Texans today. And so they went out and they probably had their best game of the season, basically. So now let's start putting some of that playoff talk back in. If they win out, they beat the Vikings. Maybe people start having expectation. I'm not saying the players buy into that, but it just seems like it's just the perfect roller coaster of a map for Bears fans to get one tiny speck, a glimmer of hope. There's like, if they can beat this team, then we might be back in the playoff race. And I just don't know if they can string 3 wins together like that.
Hey guys, a great question here, a great point. And I'd love for you guys to discuss it. Let me find it here. T. Rick says, if Foles got benched after his 4th loss, the team has a winning record right now. What do you guys think?
Tyler?
That's accurate. There's no way. Apples and oranges. We don't know, hindsight is 20/20. And so it's easy to say that now, but we don't know the dynamics of that, how that game would have gone. But we do know this. Mr. Trubisky got benched for less. Mr. Trubisky got benched for less things. And so we could have made changes a long time ago. I don't even want to waste time even thinking about it. But I do believe our record would have been better because Mr. Trubisky, the running game happens to be evident when Mitch is starting. These are just the facts. There was no running game during the 6-game drought. We had a lack of a running game. So guys were just truly running hungry. Otto got the highest draw. That was a big stop when Watson was running. They ended up punting the ball. Look at my man Mitch, bro, across the middle. Come on, look at this, John. Watch his footwork. Oh baby, first down, first down.
No, you're right. He had a better game, but to that original question, it's hard to say. You could make a case that you can make a case that they lose against the Falcons unless they put Foles in. So there's a lot of evidence, or there's a lot of ammo to that argument that they might have a better record with Mitch. That even if that's the case, let's just say that is the case. Then who does that come back on? The head coach. And it comes back to the head coach, obviously not knowing the personnel or still trying to hammer away with his system, and he believes Nick Foles can run his system. So let's once again a holistic look at this. Even if Mitch would have gotten you a winning record, if you have a coach that doesn't recognize that or can't customize a game plan to that, then that coach shouldn't be around. And so maybe, and if that is the case, then it's on the head coach. But either way, there was a failure somewhere. It's just locating where the failure was at.
Hey guys, one thing that we have not, and the Chicago media has not talked a lot about, is what role John DeFilippo has had in the development of Mitch Trubisky. I was so excited when they hired John DeFilippo as the quarterback coach. Anybody that knows him has seen his work on the internet, he has programmed out plays, and he's talked about quarterback mechanics and so forth. You know that this guy truly is a quarterback whisperer. He's had a lot of success in the NFL developing quarterbacks. He has a fabulous way of communicating what a quarterback should do and so forth. And so I think that one of the things that kind of gives me hope or makes me wonder about Mitch Trubisky, could he be a long-term answer, is John DeFilippo, because we are seeing Mitch Trubisky have better mechanics. We are seeing Mitch Trubisky do things on a more consistent basis than we have even before, even in the 2018 season when he helped lead the team to the playoffs. So I just wonder, and keep in mind that there were no off-season workouts, that DeFilippo didn't have the opportunity to work shoulder to shoulder with Mitch in training camp and so forth. And when they were finally in camp, he was splitting his time with both quarterbacks, Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky. I always felt like you should make a decision on who the quarterback is going to be real early so that DeFilippo can work full time with that guy for 2, 3, 4 weeks before the season starts, so that quarterback can go out there. I don't care if it's Foles, I don't care if it's Trubisky, but clearly Trubisky was the better guy to work with because of the investment you put into him, that first round draft pick, trading up for him, about the possibility that he could be your number one quarterback for the next 5 to 10 years. But again, bottom line is John DeFilippo deserves some credit here in what I've seen of Mitch Trubisky, and maybe, I know John is like rolling his eyes saying, oh no, here we go again. I wish this was before 55. I'd kick his ass.
Well, I know what you're saying. But which is there could be some validity to that, and that really could be true. But we got to stop talking like there's a year left in the season. There's 3 weeks left. Are they going to retain DeFilippo and nobody else? Is that how it's going to work? So even if he is, instrumental in bringing Mitch along, guys, we got 3 weeks left in the season, and the direction and the needle is pointing towards the GM and the coach not being here anymore. So even if this guy was instrumental in Mitch coming along, then what does it matter? They're both probably going to be gone next year anyway. So what are we talking about? So it's I don't know how, even if he is, and yes, would I have liked to see DeFilippo with Mitch full time for the entire year? Absolutely. Are you willing to do that with the same coaching staff, the same GM, the same head coach, and just say, okay, let's just give DeFilippo 1 full year with Mitch and see what happens? Are you guys willing to do that?
Hey, John, yes. If we get
with the same head coach and the same GM.
If we get some playoff wins, if
if they win the Super Bowl, bring them back. But they're not going to do that.
Hey, John, brother, there's a reason why everybody. Do you stop watching boxing after the first round?
No, that's why it's boxing,
right? And so it's a long season, brother.
I stopped watching golf after the first round.
Okay, that's different.
When someone's 25 over par, it's over.
We got some cool guys in the chat. Mr. Trubisky kick Watson in the face like Charlie Murphy. That was funny. That was a funny comment. You bring that up. Otto, you talked about Mitch's mechanics. Without that fumble in last game, Mitch plays 2 mistake-free football games. And so without that is something I do see a difference in Mitch, because we saw, and I can't believe we saw 3 first down. That's it right there. Mitch could be right. That's classic. I was crying during that episode. I was crying. That's good. But I saw Mitch Trubisky have back-to-back first down plays. It was like 3 in a row. Even after the sack, I think it was at the end of the first half, he took a sack, still got his back into first down even after that. And so sometimes I'm not even mad about this season, John. Sometimes you got to have things taken away from you to appreciate a little bit more. So maybe we see in Mitch Trubisky. I don't think Mitchell had that much fight in him if he wasn't benched originally. So I thought that sit down was good, because, young man, do you really want it? Like, let's temper our expectations. Mitch is at the last year of his rookie contract, guys. His first contract is over. He's still young in this game, and he didn't have the first. that help that these other quarterbacks have had and throughout the rest of the league. So I'm willing to give Mitch some grace. Will he bring back with the next regime? I don't know. We don't know. And if we keep winning games, this regime will be around. But is Bill Lazor going to come out and say, hey, this was all me? Nagy had nothing to do with it. That would give us some clarity, but we will never know the truth. But what I do know is the Bears offense looked better. It executed better the past 2 weeks, lack thereof.
Yeah. I know. I just feel like a lot of we're talking about these incremental changes, and I'm just trying to look at this from a business standpoint if I'm the Chicago Bears, where it's thinking if they do have a new GM, if they do have a new head coach, why would they bring back the main thing that that the last regime is going to be known for as essentially a failure, whether you're going to back Mitch or not? They moved up to draft this guy number 2 overall, and he did not perform like they hoped. That's going to be the sticking point from the previous regime. If you're a new GM and head coach, why do you bring him back when you know you have to bring Nick Foles back? You contractually have to, and you're probably going to go draft a quarterback. And if Mitch hits free agency, then he's probably not just going to take $1 million to stay with the Bears and maybe get a chance when he can go probably make a $3 or $4 million contract somewhere else where it might be a better environment. Maybe the system's better for him. And I know that this becomes a talking point every week for us, and it's probably going to be until the end of the season or whenever he's no longer on the roster, because this was a number 2 overall pick by the Chicago Bears. It's going to be a polarizing conversation no matter what. But I mean, if we just keep talking about his incremental progress, I don't think that's going to matter. It's going to come down to dollars and cents, and whether or not there's a new GM and a new head coach. That's what it's going to come down to. This isn't Madden, where you can just sign somebody and they're going to plug him in there and he's going to do the same thing. These are actual business things that have to take care of. I don't think they're ever going to put a transition tag on this guy, because that's over $20 million in dead cap for a guy that might not start. And so, and not to mention you're paying Nick Foles, what is it, like it's between $12 and $14 million, whatever it is, to be the backup next year. And you have to do that because you guaranteed it. And then you're going to bring in this developmental guy. Let's say he's pretty good and you want to start him. Maybe he comes in and he plays better than Foles and Trubisky, which isn't out of the realm of possibility that a quarterback could play better than Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles. So he comes in and all of a sudden he's named the starter week 1 and you're paying $35 million for your backup quarterbacks. I just don't see that as a smart business sense.
Yeah, bottom line is this. Ryan Pace has 1 year left on his contract, and Matt Nagy has 2 years left on his contract. So what the Bears ownership is probably going to do is tell Ryan Pace, you got a year, baby. You got a year for you and your man, Matt Nagy, to do it. And you cannot fire Matt Nagy, because I don't want to have you on your last year of your contract hire another head coach. So that's probably what's going to happen. Now,
do you think they're retained?
I do. Unfortunately, I think from a business perspective, that's what George McCaskey and the Chicago Bears are going to do, particularly given that they're probably going to win another game this season. They're probably going to end up at a 8-8 type season. And so they're going to say, because of COVID, because of the injuries to, certain players, because of Eddie Goldman and so forth.
Every team has dealt with that, though.
I know. I totally get it. But every team also has had up and down seasons. I mean, you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're 11-1, and people still think, I don't think this team can win the Super Bowl. Is there any team out there that you will say is the dominant NFL team? Any team out there that hasn't been affected by COVID? So I'm not, I don't like what I'm saying, because if I was handed the keys, I would do what I said earlier. Hey, everybody start packing. I'm starting this shit from scratch. I'm even bringing in new furniture. I'm going to change the logo. The logo that's behind John. I don't know. I've never really liked that logo much. I'm changing that. So, but I got a feeling, as much as I would like the team to start over and bring in a general manager. In fact, this week I'm going to do a show on 10 general manager candidates I would like to see the Chicago Bears interview. And it's a show that even if they don't change the general manager this season, it's a show highlighting guys that could possibly be available. There's only so many jobs available, could possibly be available in 2022 if the Chicago Bears decide to make a general manager change. Something has to happen. If the Bears win out this season, then you know for sure Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy will be back next season with a 9-7 record. They will be back. If it's anything less than that, then the chances are they probably will still be back, although you never know. You never know, but I do believe they'll be back. What do you guys think?
Guys, it's if this is how the team responds to Matt Nagy not being involved with the offense, John, I'm okay with it. Nagy as a mind, Nagy talking leadership, I like him. He's cool. The whole Nagy is the second coming of whatever offense. I'm done with that. No, you lost me at hello with that. No, I'm done. I'm not falling for that fool's gold. But if this is Bill Lazor's doing, I don't want the head coach to be an offensive coordinator. If we're going to bring somebody else in, let whoever the offensive genius is, let him offensive coordinate. The head coach is to be responsible for everything, the overall vision. Okay, John C. Maxwell, give the vision, give the people vision. What's the rally cry? What are we fighting for? Chicago, you know what's happening in Chicago right now? Like there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things happening in life right now that is bigger than football. There's so many bigger things. So a lot of people, and I just want real quick. I love all you fans. Everybody taking the time away to come in and just listen to us go back and forth. We love you guys. All these questions, all you guys talking in the chat room, we freaking love you guys. Thank you for giving us your time, because you could easily be pouring into the negativity, and we're not doing that here. And so, but with the coaching staff here, we just need leaders of men. Leaders of men who are just going to give us team pointers in the right direction to beat the Packers. Give us like to everything else. Let's beat the Packers. Give us direction to be an example of we want to fight when our back is against the wall. What are we going to do, John? What are we going to do? Not the philosophical answer of all these things. Get the freaking win. Develop these young men, because NFL not for long. We have Khalil Mack. We have these guys. Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson is a great receiver. Guess what? Somebody's throwing him the ball. So you got to give Mitch credit in that, because look, Allen Robinson's going to go over 1,000 yards again this season. As bad as the quarterback is.
He already did, brother.
He already did.
Somebody's throwing him the ball. So, we I mean, if we win this game 10-7, fire everybody. but there is reason for grace here, and so I am excited. David Montgomery, oh my gosh, who would have thought? The running game, it works. And so like I do want to change, only if it's going to be. I don't want to be the guy who, once again, Mike North and Aldo, you guys talked about it. All this homegrown talent that we grow up and then they leave, and then they go succeed everywhere else. John, you talked about it. Adam Shaheen and all these other guys that are scoring touchdowns on these teams. These are guys that are. So let's just chill for a second. Let's just see how it plays out. If we miss the playoffs, cool. I'm cool with it. Fire everybody. But if we make the playoffs, man, and this is how we're gonna show up. If the defense is gonna show up like this, if Mr. Trubisky is gonna play mistake-free football, take the sack, no interceptions. Mahomes threw 3 interceptions a day. Just saying. They still won. I'm just saying, ayo, little by little, brick by brick, let's just see what happened, because Mitch Trubisky, from snap to finish, played good football today. And that's what I believe in that. And if with that safety was on a 3-man rush. That safety was on a 3-man rush without Eddie Goldman. Mm-hmm. That should say something to you.
Yep. Good point. Guys, final thoughts before we
John's like whatever, John. John's like whatever.
No. I need this, and this is why we're both on this show, where it's a yin and yang kind of thing. And you know what? Hey Aldo, for parting shots, just let me go first. How about that? It's because I'm gonna go first this week, and I know that I've turned into a curmudgeon when it comes to this team, and I've turned into a little negative. And please know that I'm not a Bears hater. I think both of these gentlemen on this show know that I love this team. I have a direct bloodline into this team. I absolutely put this team above anything, like I said, sports related in my life. I have Bears things all over my house, my car, you name it. I got Bears in my blood. So I want this team to succeed more than anything. So I just don't, and that's why maybe I'm that over harsh parent when it comes to that kind of thing, where it's just like, I know you could be better. I know you could be better. Start playing up to your potential. So that's kind of what I want to see out of this franchise. And the last thing I want to see is a lame duck season in 2021. Guys, every season is important. If it takes rebuilding, I understand that. But every season is important. We go through this from September to December. I mean, and after week 17, if they don't make the playoffs, we don't get to watch Bears football again for 8 months. And so that's what sucks the most, is whenever you have to go through it. And wipe your tears, Aldo, I know. But it's just whenever something like this happens, every season is so important, because it only comes around. You only get 16 cracks at it a year. And then if you don't make the playoffs, you got to wait 8 months. And then hopefully the next season is better. And that's why I want to see some things shook up. That's why I want to see some things change, because I don't want to see 2021 turn into this lame duck season where they put the playoff mandate on somebody and say, make the playoffs or you're gone. Most of the time that means you've been underperforming and here's your last shot. And it's probably not going to happen, but you got to make the playoffs to save your job. How many times does that really happen, where the coach goes out and they take the division and they win the Super Bowl on a playoff mandate year? It doesn't happen all that often. So that's why I think there needs to be some change on how they do business, how they do hiring, how they do personnel, how they develop personnel. We can have an entire show about how they failed to develop some of these younger players, including the quarterback, including the tight end, including the Leonard Floyd, some of these other guys that they brought in, that they drafted, who've had high potential and then go off and they flourish elsewhere. There's been a real problem in developing players as well. So that's why I want to see this team shake things up and change things systematically. I don't want to just see a new head coach. I just don't want to see a new GM. But I want to see things change. I want to see a winning culture, not just a good culture, a winning culture. And whenever back-to-back playoff seasons twice in 30 years, that's not a winning culture. I don't care who the GM is. I don't care who the head coach is. That's not a winning culture. That's getting your shot every 4 or 5 years. And then hopefully it works out. That's being really excited about 12-4 in 2018, and then saying, okay, well, I guess it's another 4 or 5 years we'll be back in the playoffs. Maybe. I don't want that anymore. I'm tired of this puncher's chance mentality we have, where we can, maybe if this happens or we land a couple lucky shots, we're in this. I want to be the favorite going in. So I want to build a foundation on this team where it's going to be winning year in and year out. I know that's asking a lot. I know a lot of franchises don't have that. Detroit doesn't have that. Cleveland didn't have that, although they're playing well this year. There's a lot of franchises that have never won a Super Bowl. And I know how hard it is in the NFL. But that doesn't mean you can't aspire for it. That doesn't mean that you have to give up aiming for that. And that's what I want to see. I want to see a dominant team in Chicago. So that's why I'm going to continue criticizing. I'm not hurling insults, by the way. I'm showing you what I'm seeing I'm showing you what I'm seeing on the field. I'm showing you what I'm seeing on TV for the last 6 weeks when they lost every game. I'm just not going to puff up a team that loses 6 games and say, "Oh, I'm still a fan though. They're great. They're super." No, they're not. They sucked, but they played well today and they won today. So I gave them props for winning today. So, but is that holistically, does that mean anything? I don't know. So I want to see some things change. I want to see this team win. And I'm passionate about this team winning. And that's why maybe I come off as a little irritated, a little negative, a little mean, being a little critical of things. Maybe that's why. But I think I speak for a lot of Bears fans who've watched who've watched the Bears longer than I have. Although you've been watching this team for 40, 50, 125 years since they came in the league in 1920. I think I speak for a lot of Bears fans when I say I'm tired of just seeing maybe we make the playoffs once every 5 years. I'm tired of having that one good team every half decade. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of that. Mm-hmm. So change, and I know that I'm blowing up here after a win. I know that's not proper media protocol. I know that's not proper radio show mentality after a win going off like this. But we're talking about this team as a whole. They won today. I want to see more of that. I want to see more winning as we go by, and through as the years go by, I want to see more of that. So hopefully, if they make the playoffs, wonderful. I hope they win out. I hope they make the playoffs. We're going to be doing a playoff show if that happens. A lot has to happen for that to be the case. But I'd love to do a playoff show with you guys. That would be so much fun. That would be the Bears in the playoffs. Who would have thought if you had told me that last week? But so let's just try to look at this thing realistically. I always try to look at this thing as I try to remove myself from it and look at this team as if anybody as neutral as possible, and that's why I wanted to see some things change. But after all of that, you can get a lot more of me yelling if you wish on Buffon 55 this week. I think we bumped the show to Thursday. We're gonna have a Thursday release this week. We're gonna break down their game with the Vikings. They're gonna have a couple rants from myself, Alyssa Barbieri, and Aldo. We'll go after we have some things, the dust settles a little bit, and we get a little more clarity on the tape and all these other and some more press conferences. We can go and talk about the Bears' chances at the playoffs. We'll talk about the Bears' chances in the offseason, the Bears' chances in the front office, whatever happens to be the hot topic at the time. We will go over this week on Buffon 55. Also, our new show that we debuted back in September, Pass the Mic, Alyssa Barbieri and I, a show all about empowering female voices in sports media. We've had some incredible guests. We're going to have a new episode this week. Really, really different and incredible guest, Justine Siegel, who was the first ever coach in Major League Baseball, a female coach in Major League Baseball. It's going to be just an incredible show, and she has an incredible story. I'm not going to make too many spoilers here because I really, really want people to check that episode out. It's going to be unlike all the other ones we've done. It's going to be really peel back the curtain on a lot of things. So we're excited about that. That's going to be also later this week on the Barroom Network.
Hey, Tyler, before you go, I want to play a little of Doug Buffon. This is John's uncle after a game, and this is where John Buffon gets his passion for the Chicago Bears.
Score when your offense is on the bench. When your defense is out there giving up 70, 80, 70, 64-yard drives and taking up the time, you don't have the damn ball to do anything with it. And that's Lovie Smith's fault, too. He's calling those damn defenses. I'm not calling them. Ed's not calling them. He's calling them. And it's about time you start calling what the hell's going on out there. And this is not the first game. This happened in Detroit. This happened in Cincinnati. You tell me what's going on out there when the team can take a football and drive it down your throat. At least hold them to a field goal. This is moronic.
I love it. I love it.
No, don't tell me he didn't love the team.
Really? Played 15 seasons for the Chicago Bears. For 55. When I started watching football in the 1960s, I took a look at Doug Buffon and I said, man, oh man, everybody's talking about Dick Butkus, but this guy number 55, he's doing a lot to help Dick Butkus beat Dick Butkus. So, and then followed his broadcast career, and that passion that he brought was outstanding. All right, Tyler Ellis, give us your final thoughts here, brother.
The final thoughts is, John, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate the realness, you and your uncle, man, because that shows you care, and I know you do. And at the Barroom Network, authenticity is allowed. That is okay, brother. We ain't sugarcoating for nobody. This is not that watered down producing type show. We're gonna bring real. If we didn't care, we wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
We want our team to win, and I will never forget that NFC loss championship that hurt so bad. I had to protect my heart from that type of pain. Just that when Cutler that whole thing, just like everything was flipped over. So, like, brother, final thoughts, man. We're gonna ride this out as long as we can. We're gonna ride the season out. We're gonna take this. John, I love your perspective because we did play a bad team who's probably at the bottom of their division. That's his full transmission. But at the same time, we scored 4 times the amount of points that they did, which is that's what you expect. We didn't play down to their level. We superseded that competition. So that gives me hope. They said, hey, yo, we could beat the Jaguars. We should be able to beat Minnesota, but we haven't yet. Minnesota beat it last time. And so that was without a certain receiver. And so final thoughts are, hey, yo, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Regardless of, we will judge the end of the season, off-season moves when we get to that point. That's a good point. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens this week. Mitch, can we duplicate this? We had 2 good games from Mr. Trubisky. Okay, 1 game finally mistake-free. no turnovers. Let's duplicate that. All three phases, something that we haven't had here in a very long time, have executed. And that was pretty cool to see. Okay. And so can the defense come out and play like that? The defense, forget about the offense. The defense finally stepped up to the table, because if the defense didn't get those 7-3 and outs, we don't know if Mitch Trubisky has the opportunity to get those points. And so Watson could have went off for 40 points. That'd be a whole nother bag of worms. Then it's more pressure on Mitch. So collectively, as a cohesive unit, I love this team. My father's favorite team. I'm all in on this team. Okay. But bigger than football, we want to see a brotherhood that lasts off the field just as much on the field, just like on this network. And that's why I love freaking doing the show with you guys, because you guys give me clarity. You guys give me the other perspective that I'm not used to. And so I love it. And that's why I appreciate being part of this network. A ton of great shows coming up. Fantasy football, Tooch and the Goon. John and Tooch did a great job earlier today. Catch them guys out. There's a lot of fantasy playoffs happening around this time. And so I don't know, that's really all I got. I mean, happy to be a part of it. Thank you guys for watching. Much love to my love, and bear down.
All right. Lovie Smith used to say that he likes to divide the season up into quarters. And so for the first quarter of the season, the Chicago Bears were 3-1. Then they were 2-2. And so all of a sudden you get the kind of this feeling, oh man, this is not going good. And then that third quarter really showed it. 0-4, 6-game losing streak. And so now we started off the final quarter of the season 1-0. My hope is that we are going to finish the season 4-0, and we're going to make a push for the playoffs, because it's all about winning. I don't care about rebuilding until after the season. Like John and Tyler just said, we've got to evaluate this team more so after the season. Let's give them a full season. And, let's step back a little bit and look at the fact that COVID did wreck some of the plans. DeFilippo did not have that opportunity to work with the quarterbacks in a regular type preseason. And that matters because there were so many changes involved with this team. So, I'm willing to hold out some hope, but also deep down in my heart, I don't see all of the pieces in place for a Super Bowl team. So a lot has to happen over these next 3 weeks, but you only got to take it one game at a time. So let's hopefully win next week, and then we'll see what happens the following week, right? And I want to also leave you with this. Gabriel and Schuster will be on the Bears Barroom channel tomorrow at 1 p.m. They will evaluate this entire team. Greg has also promised a scouting report on Kyle Trask, the Florida quarterback who is jumping up. He was looked at as a third-round draft pick before the college football season. Then early in the college football season, he kind of jumped up into the second round. Now a lot of people were thinking that he's a possible mid-first round draft pick. And so if people were thinking about Kyle Trask as a potential mid-round draft pick for the Chicago Bears, you'll want to hear Greg Gabriel's analysis of Kyle Trask, and also his analysis, and David Schuster, who was at the game today, their analysis of this Bears 36-7 win. And then throughout the week, we've got more and more Bears programming. Dan and Aldo Bear Their Souls. That's a show where Dan Aguirre and I, we put on our R-rated hats and we joke around and have a good time with kind of an after hours show. We are recording that on Tuesday. We've got Buffon 55, as John mentioned. So we've got all sorts of great Bears coverage, and also Chicago Bulls coverage on Monday with sharpshooters David Schuster and Mark Shanowski. Two great basketball minds are going to start talking about this Bulls season. That first preseason game was awful, but I really love the way the head coach said, we got our asses handed to us, and that's good because we know now what we got to work on. We got to work on guarding the ball. We got to work on communicating on defense. We got to work on rotating defenses and so forth. So Mark Shanowski and David Schuster will give us the lowdown of that first preseason game and the second preseason game that they're playing on tonight. So we got a lot of great stuff here at the Bears Barroom, Fantasy Football Goon, and on and on and on. I could take an hour just talking about it. So subscribe to Bears Barroom right here. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit like, please hit subscribe, and please hit that little bell, because when you hit that little bell, it'll give you a notice whenever we're doing a live show or have premiered something for you to take a look at. And if you're listening to the show on iTunes, please leave us a review on iTunes and let people know that you like what the Bears Barroom Radio Network is up to. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye and tell everybody thanks a lot for being a part of the Barroom Network. We really appreciate it, like Tyler said. And we'll be back here next week after that win against the Jags.